Well, welcome to the Eagles Coaches Masterclass presented by Lincoln Financial Group. I'm Fran Duffy, really happy to be joined this week by Eagles passing game coordinator, quarterbacks coach, Press Taylor, to kind of talk through quarterback progressions. And Press, thanks for joining us here on the segment. Really excited to dive into this conversation because so often when I'm talking with fans and talking with media and even myself, when I'm watching football, watching the game, we'll sit there and say, why did the quarterback not make this throw? This guy's wide open. There's a lot of reasons why some of those things may look like that from the naked eye, but I'm really excited to kind of dive into this with you and just talk about the different progressions, the different types of reads that could be asked of a quarterback on any given play.
Right. And I think part of it comes from what you're trying to accomplish with each play. So what you're seeing from the defense, what you're trying to accomplish. A lot of times, if you have five guys out in a route, we can't tell the quarterback you're getting all five are really truly an option at every single given point in time. You got to accelerate his vision. Unfortunately, we don't have forever to throw the ball and look through everybody. So you want to really, by accelerating his vision, as we'll say, we want him to key a certain defender based on coverage. Sometimes he has to identify the coverage pre-snap to know where he's going to see things, or sometimes it's going to happen post-snap. And a lot of times, even if there's a pre-snap read, there's a post-snap confirmation to know what I'm seeing. There's going to be some things that are man or zone combinations. If it's man, you work this side. If it's zone, you work that side. It's going to change as he identifies coverage and how he does things in certain times. There's some where it's going to be what we'll call pure progression, where if one's open, one gets the ball. Regardless if it's man or zone, this is how you're playing, this is how you're reading this concept. So there are some intricacies to it. And a lot of times when we're talking about who we're reading, how we're manipulating coverage, a lot of times you're talking zone coverage, because then we're able to really stress certain defenders. Man coverage, a lot of times, it's matchup football. It's who's running what route on the best matchup. There's going to be times where our number one receiver is out there, but he's being followed by the number one corner. And that's a good matchup for us at times, but maybe our tight ends on linebackers is the ideal matchup in this man coverage. So sometimes that comes into play as well. But getting into, again, our reads against zone coverage, we'll start with what we call a vertical stretch. So we're picking, there's going to be a defender on the field, and we're getting a high-low stretch off this player. We're going to have somebody over the top of him in his zone and somebody underneath. Ideally, we bait him to come down underneath, and we're able to throw the ball over his head and create a play. So right here, you're looking at a 2x2 set, and we're trying to work a high-low on the corner or the cloud defender up top. So we're putting an element out in the flat. The corner does a great job. He's a flat defender, but he's going to get some depth as this thing goes into the route concept. So he gets his depth. There's nobody in the flat. Quarterback dumps the ball underneath. We're trying to high-low, again, that flat defender, really with Ertz's route running a corner and the flat route from the back. That's really the point of this one. The corner does his job, sloughs off, gets depth. We put the ball in the flat. It's not sexy. It's a 5, 6, 7-yard gain, but we've done what we wanted to do in terms of stressing a certain player.
Press, is it always like a touchdown to check down kind of thing where you're working deep to short, or does that change based on the play?
It really kind of changes based on the play and the area of the field. Okay. Depending on protection. We know that if we're in a true 5-man protection, we're not going to be able to hold the ball and launch it down the field. So a lot of times the route concept has to marry that. And so as game planners, that's our responsibility for doing that. And then the quarterback understanding the intent of the play. If we want to launch the ball down the field, a lot of times there's 6, 7, maybe 8 guys in protection, knowing we need some help. We need to have some double teams up front, because asking your guys just to hold up in protection all game is a recipe for disaster.
Got it. So again, to just kind of highlight it for the viewers and the fans at home, vertical stretch, you're trying to put one defender, a zone defender, in a bind. If it is man coverage, if the quarterback has an idea that it's man, you're trying to play off a matchup. But if it's a zone coverage, you get that look pre-snap. You're trying to put that guy in a bind, some kind of a high-low read, putting someone in front of him and someone behind him.
Absolutely. And here we're working a flat defender again. It's still a cloud. So a cloud being a corner playing in the flat, cover 2 behind it. We put the back out to the flat, and we get the guy just enough. I mean, right here, he's trying to do the same thing you saw in that Cincinnati clip with the guy getting depth, but he's created enough room to where we're able to, again, push the ball in that window over the top of that guy and create an explosive play down the field right there.
And is that something too where Carson, we'll kind of see this from the end zone angle where, he's trying to sell that to the flat?
Yeah, if this is something we've done, a couple times, now you'll see the quarterback sometimes kind of take that next level and give maybe a little shoulder and eyes to the flat to try to tie the guy down. So there's a time and a place for that, I think. If it's probably the first time you do it, you're truly going to get your eyes out there, see what the flat defender does, and you're going to take what he gives you, is really how we'll explain it to those guys.
Got it. So there are two examples of vertical stretches, high-low reads for the quarterback. Now, there's the vertical stretch, and then we talk a lot about like a horizontal stretch. Take us in through what does that look like?
A horizontal stretch would be more so putting two guys on the same level out in front of the guy. And again, it's a matter of who you're stressing. So I think this clip even is still going to be a vertical stretch, but now we're bringing it in, and now we're stretching a hook defender. So whether it's single high or two high, there's still a certain guy that's responsible for the hook area of the field. Basically, between the numbers and the hash is kind of that hook area that we define for our guys. So this is an older game against Green Bay, but same, you're watching up top. Really, the back is going to be the guy, in this case, that's trying to tie down that hook defender, and we're bringing the dagger route in behind it right there. Again, trying to stress that guy with the high-low concept in his zone defense. So right here, the guy in the middle of the field, the linebacker, we do it again with the play fake, buys him down in there a little bit, and then the back getting out into his route still ties 54 down enough. And there's enough separation with the route to where the dagger route's going to come in behind, caught at an ideal spot. And really the guy making the tackle was what we would define as the backside hook player. So as long as that ball's thrown on time, in rhythm to the right catch point, that guy's a non-factor in the play.
So really, this kind of goes back to that Cincinnati play where you had that vertical route on the outside to help lift the coverage. You see that here with that vertical route from the slot helps lift the coverage, but really it's a lot on that underneath route. Here it's Darren Sproles in the flat just to hold that defender, put him in that bind to open things up in the intermediate area of the field.
Absolutely. And the play pass, the play action itself does a little bit of that. You see 54 steps up into his gap. Those two hook players in single high coverage have a lot on their plate. They have run fits, they have gaps in the run game, but they also have coverage responsibilities. So we're really trying to maximize the stress on those guys. And here we do a good job of that. We get him to step up into his gap and then create a window behind to make a throw.
Beautiful. Well, let's get into these horizontal stretches now.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, it's zone coverage. We're basically picking the guy based on what we think the coverage is going to be. There's going to be different guys you want to attack in single high coverages or two high coverages. So we're picking different guys on the field. In this case, it's a quarters look, meaning four deep guys. They split the deep part of the field into fourths, and they're going to each be responsible for a section. So in this case, we're attacking this quarter safety to the boundary. So now we're stressing him. You've got your tight end going vertical at him. If he passes a certain distance, that guy now owns him, is what we'll call. So he has to take him to that responsibility. Now we're running the post route outside. And again, we're building that stretch on the quarter safety right here. We've gotten him to take the tight end to the corner, and it opens up the post in behind here by Jordan Matthews in this picture you're seeing. So again, the quarterback's responsible for knowing who we're trying to manipulate based on the coverage we see and what we anticipate a lot of times. That's play calling, that's game planning, all sorts of different ways.
How much of that is talked about over the course of the week? Is that something that gets almost day one, like Wednesday, that's point A in the first meetings that you guys have, or does that happen like later on in the week where you're talking about what the other team is going to do schematically?
Yeah, from the get-go, that's what we're talking about. I mean, as coaches, when we dive in, we're trying to look at what are their top coverages. Okay, how do we attack these coverages? Who are we attacking? How are we going to do that? How are we going to high-low this hook player? What are going to be the combinations of routes that we get to do this? And then you sell that to the quarterback. Here, we see a lot of this. Here's what we're trying to get to. Here's how we're going to attack this player. And we do it a number of different ways. There may be three concepts that to everybody else, to the defense, they look very different. But from the quarterback standpoint, where his eyes go, who he's focusing on, it's the same thing for him. And that's when a game plan's really good. When the quarterback is seeing it, a bunch of different plays seen the same way, we create that illusion of complexity, but for the quarterback, it's all the same. So right here, now we're basically running that same combination with a corner and a post, but we're sending the corner first. We're trying to pull out a half field safety and then bring that post in late by the tight end. So Dallas Goedert right here, he's responsible for getting up to the safety and pull him out to his width and bring Zach Ertz in behind it. So we're kind of doing the same thing. We're still stressing that half field safety. And it's not an easy throw. The quarterback's still having to get the ball up and down over the top of a dropping linebacker. But our quarterback, we feel like, pushes the seams as well as anybody in the league.
And then you've got, too, the route out of the from the running back in the flat to also kind of help keep that linebacker in that spot as well.
Exactly. You kind of get the ball fake, and then the back, as he leaks out, still tying that hook player down. So, you're getting a horizontal stretch maybe on that half-field safety, and then there's still some element of a high-low on a hook backer. So as he drops out, we would still have the back underneath that element as well.
Let's get to the next play here, and you kind of see the, when those were some too high looks. Excited to kind of dig into what it looks like when you have a single high look with a safety in the middle of the field.
Right. So now we're getting more that horizontal stretch on the single safety. We anticipate it. You played certain teams that's kind of what they major in. So you're putting in your attackers for that family. Now we're going to end up in a 2x2 set, and we're just going to send the two inside guys right down the seam. And we're going to have a little ball fake with it to tie these guys down. But we're really trying to stress that middle field safety. And we know as you get in the red zone, he's not getting any depth. He is now just truly going to play flat-footed, play downhill on things as we go. But again, our quarterback's strength, we feel like, is being able to drive this ball. And it's a combination of touch and velocity. When you're throwing down here in the red zone, you got to throw up over these second-level players by still being able to get it in front of the safety or the deep third in this case. And we feel like Carson really thrives at that. We have big body players, especially in our tight ends, running down the seams. He's doing a great job here. He's going to start with his eyes and try to manipulate that middle field safety, knowing I'm going to get this throw up and down to this guy as well. So when you watch this thing, there's a play fake. That's more for the hook players. And then his eyes are going to try to get that middle field safety moving one way or another. He just holds them in the middle, knowing if I throw this thing with the right pace, I'm going to get this thing up and down before that guy's even a factor on the field. And we can do different routes to get there as opposed to just running straight down the seam. Here you're going to see Alshon is going to work the seam down here at the bottom, but Zach Ertz is going to work the seam by running a different route. He's going to give a little corner move, and then it's really a corner post, but he knows at the end of the day, we're working the seams away from this middle safety. You got to trust that the quarterback's going to use his eyes to manipulate that middle safety, and then the throw is going to beat him as well. So here Carson's going to do a great job with that. Zach's going to do a great job in his route to really stress the outside leverage of this player, and the quarterback essentially makes the middle field safety a non-factor.
So often now with kind of the evolution of offense in the league, with all the different, the versatile skill sets, everyone talks about positionless players, all the different things you can do in the backfield actions and things like that to put those underneath defenders in horizontal binds. I'm excited to see some of these plays you're going to show us.
Exactly. And so the same type of situation, a lot of your quick game will be stuff like this where you're trying to out leverage underneath players. In this case, we're just trying to stretch a flat defender. So we've got this defense in base coverage. They're asking a guy that typically rushes the passer to be a flat defender. So we really like these matchups. This is what our two tight ends can give us. We feel like if you want to play base coverage or base personnel against our 12 personnel look, we've got better receivers on the field than you do cover guys. So right here, we're just going to pull a flat defender out of the picture and clear room for a stick route from Brent Selleck right there. But it's simple. It's effective in certain instances. But again, it's underneath. We know it's not a sexy play. It's a 5-6 yard gain. But we're attacking the coverage that we anticipate. Quarterback knows exactly who we're trying to stress and what we're keying right here. So his eyes are going to immediately go here. But this is a time, too, where maybe as a casual observer, you'd see a slant route to the field and say, oh, the slant route won. Why didn't he go there? Well, he's seeing the coverage a certain way, and he knows we're just trying to stress a flat player here to the boundary. We do a great job of it. We get a quick completion. It's thrown on time. It's accurate. We drop step. We end up with an 11-yard gain in quick game. We're excited. We're ecstatic as a coaching staff right here.
It's funny, too. You talk about the slant route to the field. I can't tell you how many times I'll post a shot of a stick concept just like this, and everyone will say, the number one receiver, the vertical route's wide open. But that's not the way that the progression is set for those concepts.
Exactly. And there's a time and a place. I mean, every route on the field has a reason. And sometimes there are routes that we'll say, we'll tell a guy, hey, this is for the love of the game, man. We need you right here. And it's on us as coaches to communicate that. They know, they're smart, but we explain it. It's part of the big picture here. You're going to lift the deep third of the coverage out of here so your buddy can open up on this dagger route right here. But we're going to build something on later on in the game plan for you to have a chance to be the feature guy. Things like that. You got to give them the bone if they're going to do something like that as well. So our guys do a great job of that, a big picture understanding, I think, too.
I think, too, when you have a guy like Carson that, can make some of those second reaction plays and make those plays outside of structure, those guys, maybe if they're not early in the progression, they know they have to be able to stay alive and be on their P's and Q's because, if something does break down, if the snap is dropped or, something happens where Carson has to break off that, they've got to be available for him as well.
Exactly. And that is probably a lot more nuanced than people would think, too. Those scramble rules, we work a lot of that. And a lot of that we work in our off-season program, which we're not getting the benefit of right now. But training camp, you'll work those things like you're saying. It's second reaction, but it's choreographed a little more than it may look like at times. The next portion here is just going to our pure progression. Now it's not really, we're not trying to identify coverage necessarily. Quarterback's going to pure progress. If one is open, throw it to one. If not, here comes number two. And you're going to read these like you'd read a book, just across the page. So here we're starting from the boundary. This is a concept we've been running forever here. Where you're back on your rail route here is really number one. So he's going to start one. Nelson Aguilar is going to show up across the field as two. The splits, where these guys are standing on the field, that's going to matter because the way he runs his route, it's got to time up with the quarterback's drop, the protection of the play. All the elements have to be married together. So in this case, the back's going to be number one on this rail. Nelson here at the slot's going to be number two, coming on this shallow route underneath. In this case, Mac Hollins sitting over the ball is really number three. So the quarterback, if you ended where everybody was, there's a rail route out in the flat. There's Nelson here in the hook area. There's a hook route over the ball. And the quarterback can just 1, 2, 3 work his way across the page. And I think part of this is when you get really good as a quarterback, you know where the issues are in some of these concepts. And so there may be a one, but if they play a certain coverage, one's not really an option. So how quickly as a quarterback can you process that information and eliminate guys? I think that's really what processing is for quarterback, is being able to eliminate quickly.
I believe that was the play. Was it against the Arizona Cardinals in 2017 where Torrey Smith went for the deep post for a touchdown, where he quickly saw, you know what, like with the depth of the safeties pre-snap, like I'm going to go get right off of 1, 2, 3. I'm going right to number 4 or number 5. It might have been wherever Torrey was in that progression. But, you know, just having that understanding of what the defense was showing pre-snap and say, you know what, forget what's going on here. I'm going to go over the top on this one.
Exactly. And there's times we'll call those alerts. So here's your progression, but that route over there is your alert. So an alert, sometimes it's versus certain coverage. If you see this coverage, that's alive. Otherwise, it's really not a factor in this certain progression. And so quarterbacks, sometimes those are deeper shots. They get excited and they're looking for those. And so you build those in through, this is your outlet if you get the certain look, and that's it. So our guys do a good job identifying that. And this can all look different. You saw, you know, that rail route to Jordan Howard there for the touchdown. He was wide open because it was a man coverage look. The guy got picked off. This is going to be more of a fire zone where they're going to ask this defensive end to drop with Miles. Carson's going to recognize that, and it's going to be a different throw than it was to Jordan, but we're really throwing the same route we did. So this is up over the top where Jordan was more dot him right now because he was open right now. But it's all the same, and it's got elements to beat man. It's got elements to beat zone. A lot of these are good versus man or zone, all these different coverages. But quarterback, now I don't have to identify as much. Just progress across the page like we've asked. And this is, you know, each part of it has a place in a game plan.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's not that any one type of read is better than the other. You still have to mix in all these different things because you don't want the defense to kind of key in on, you know, what the quarterback is trying to do either, right?
Exactly. And a lot of it comes from game planning. You watch and you see what coverages you face. And so certain plays may not be in each single week. And then you're looking for when they play man, what are our matchups? Who are our matchups? How do we get them there? How do we get Zach Ertz on a linebacker, or Dallas Goedert on a linebacker, or Zach on a safety that can't cover? Or how do we get our better receiver in the slot against this cover guy? Or if we know they're not going to flip their corners, how do we get our best receiver on the guy that we deem to be the lesser corner in man coverage? And then identifying what situations will they play certain zone coverages and how do we attack that? That's kind of the chess match of it all.
Yeah, one of the things too, and this is the third the third example we've seen of this concept. All the formations have been different. It goes back to something you said at the very top. You know, it looks a little bit different for the defense, but for the quarterback, the progression is the same. He knows, you know, all these the route concepts are all going to look very, very similar.
Exactly. When you look at the 2017 Super Bowl, we ran this play 5 times in the game out of 5 different formations. And we had more that we didn't call. I mean, that's the beauty. It's a play that guys are comfortable with. We're comfortable with. We're really not as concerned about what the coverage is because it's just a pure progression type play for us. But you've got to build it all together where we got to be able to line up in this formation and run other things, or obviously defense then can key in on what you're doing. And that's the fun part of it, though. But you'll see this, again, ball going to all different spots versus all different coverages. A lot of people confuse this play for just being a man play because there's the cross element of these two guys getting shoulder to shoulder. But we love it versus this single high zone look. You'll see the 3 guys in the middle, our 3 guys right now, the spacing's not great. It's going to end up being great. But what we're trying to do is these 3 players, in this case, 3 tight ends, when they all disperse at the end of this thing, they're building what we call a middle triangle. And in 3 deep, 4 under coverages, all we're trying to do is put that middle triangle on the 2 inside hook defenders and make those guys be wrong. If you want to take the shallow route, which they do here, they take both shallow routes. There's nobody sitting on the guy over the ball. And we've stressed that zone to get a throw. But again, it was a pure progression play. So the quarterback may anticipate this and may accelerate his vision to this because of zone coverage. The flat defender is going to take my rail route. I know I've got my middle triangle here on these 2 inside hook players. He does that quickly, and the way it works out here is the guy over the ball ends up wide open. We're playing on time, 3rd and 5, big completion over the ball.
Yeah, so it's a pure progression read for the quarterback, but it's got that horizontal stretch element, and that essentially it's 3 versus 2 in the middle of the field. Again, the defense, they can't be right in that situation.
Exactly, and the details are so important. The spacing of this, where these underneath routes could sit down in zone coverages matters, and they've got to be on those landmarks. A lot of times you'll see guys early on, they want to stop, and they kind of skip into their route. Well, now they're getting into a whole nother zone. We're not affecting the right player. You're not where the quarterback expected you to be. So all that matters. It's all choreographed.
Yeah, that's what, to me, like getting into this conversation, I feel like just wanted to give fans a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. I'm guilty of this too. We grow up, we play Madden, we play, NCAA football, and we just drop back and we just throw to one of the open receivers. It's a lot more layered, a lot more nuanced than that on every given play.
It is. And then there's also the point that there's at any given time 4, 5, maybe 6 guys trying to take your head off as well. So it's got to happen in a certain timing, and that's a big element of as well. So it all goes together, the protection, why the quarterback takes 3 steps here or 5 steps here, or what we're trying to affect. And then there's times within a game you get to certain maybe you get to quick game because your quarterback's been under pressure, or your line, it helps your line sometimes to call different protections. So sometimes it's a quick game, so your line can cut guys quickly because the ball's going to be out so quick. So all that comes into play, and it matters how everybody's playing and what you're trying to feature.
You've worked with a lot of quarterbacks over your career. Do you guys have favorites in terms of like the kinds of reads that they like to go to? Hey, like I really prefer high-low stuff. I really like horizontal stretch. Do they have favorites, or most guys just feel comfortable across the board?
Absolutely. Guys have favorites. So there's a time and a place, and which quarterback likes what. So our offense doesn't change when we change guys, but we're going to feature certain things because this guy does this really well. And maybe he did it in college, or maybe he's just really comfortable with this type of read. There's some guys that don't love all these guys crossing in the middle of the field because they just feel like there's a lot of people in there when they're working their way through it. So sometimes they just want guys to kind of stay where they are. And you find ways to build these similar concepts and manipulate those zones by different ways.
Well, Press, this has been awesome. Really, really appreciate you joining us here on Coaches Masterclass, presented by Lincoln Financial Group. Stay safe, stay healthy. Hopefully we'll be seeing you soon at the NovaCare Complex, but thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Fran. Thanks for having me.